All right, well, good morning, everyone. I am pleased to be here today alongside Minister of Education Demetrios Nicolaides, Minister of Infrastructure Pete Guthrie, Patricia Bolger, who's Chair of the Calgary Board of Education, and Julie Cusick, who is Chair of the Edmonton Public School Board, to speak with you about the announcement we made yesterday evening on our latest investment in Alberta students and how we're addressing serious enrollment pressures all across the province. As I said in my televised address last night, and as Alberta's K-12 educators and students know well, our education system is experiencing an unprecedented surge in student population. A record number of people are choosing to relocate to Alberta. That's a testament to the Alberta advantage, our strong economy and the great quality of life that people find here and which makes our province one of the most attractive places to live in Canada. But that increase in population is adding about 33,000 students to our education system each year. So that's the equivalent of about 35 schools every year. In Budget 2024, we allocated record funding to build and modernize new schools to accommodate the growing number of students, but it's simply not enough to address this incredible growth. That's why we're increasing our K-12 capital budget for the new school spaces, as well as modernizations through the School Construction Accelerator Program. The new program will allow us to complete construction on about 50,000 new student spaces over the next 3 years and complete more than 150,000 new spaces in the 4 years after that. This is the fastest and largest build our province can manage, given the capacity of our construction workforce and the time that it takes to permit and prepare and service available school sites. Still, we need more spaces now. So as we ramp up to full construction capacity, we're funding the purchase of new specialized modular classrooms to provide more than 20,000 new student spaces over the next 4 years. And in addition, we will add 12,500 new charter school student spaces over the next 4 years by providing funding to pilot a charter school accelerator program. We are committed to providing school choice for parents, and that program aligns with our commitment. Another way we're supporting parent choice in education is by developing a school capital pilot program for nonprofit private schools. The funding will incentivize independent schools to invest and create thousands of new student spaces at a reduced cost to taxpayers. We know that every student deserves a quality education in a school that can meet their learning needs and set them on a path to success in the future. That's why, to ensure every student has a space, we're getting our School Construction Accelerator Program off the ground right now. Cabinet and Treasury Board have approved funding to immediately move 10 previously announced school projects to the next stage of project delivery, and that includes 6 projects moving from the design stage to full construction funding. We hope to have construction completed on many more schools before the end of the school year. It is an ambitious goal, and our government will work with all partners, including municipalities and school boards, to make it a reality. And I look forward to seeing shovels in the ground and more spaces for students very soon. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Minister Demetrios Nicolaides.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Premier, so much for your incredible leadership and for the significant efforts to add these new student spaces that I know families in every corner of the province are going to benefit from. I want to thank and recognize so many partners in education who are joining us here today. Apologies in advance if I miss someone, but I did see representatives from Calgary Catholic. Thank you for being here. I did see representatives from the Alberta School Boards Association, Rocky View Schools, Edmonton Catholic, and the Calgary Board of Education as well. And I want to welcome you all here to Western Canada High School. As Premier noted, the Calgary metropolitan area and Edmonton metropolitan region, along with other communities, have been feeling the pressures of strong student growth and as well aging infrastructure. In Budget 24 over the next 3 years, we committed to building and modernizing 43 schools, constructing modular classrooms, and supporting the expansion of public charters and collegiates. However, considering the pressure being felt by school authorities across the province, we know that more must be done. And as the Premier noted, we're here today to provide more details about the School Construction Accelerator Program, which is an $8.6 billion commitment to deliver more than 200,000 new and modernized spaces to Alberta communities. I am confident this will keep up with the province's historic student enrollment growth by building and modernizing schools where they are needed most. I'll provide some more details now on the program. The School Construction Accelerator Program contains 4 key pillars. The first pillar is the construction of new schools. In Budget 25 and in the next 2 subsequent budgets, we will announce 30 new schools each year. By Budget 27, construction for 90 new schools will be underway in our communities of greatest need. These new schools will make up a large portion of the more than 200,000 student spaces we will be delivering in the next 7 years. These 90 new schools will serve our public, separate, and francophone school boards. Given the incredibly high utilization rates in Calgary and Edmonton metropolitan region, these communities will see a significant number of new projects. The second pillar of the program is the modernization of existing spaces. Starting in Budget 25 and again for the next 2 subsequent budgets, we will announce funding for 5 to 8 modernizations each year. Over the next 3 years, these modernizations will update up to 16,600 spaces, primarily in our rural communities. This will ensure that students outside of our high-growth communities also benefit from new and modernized spaces. The third pillar of the program involves the purchase of a large number of modular classrooms. Our goal is to add 20,000 modular spaces over the next 4 years. Modulars offer an opportunity for unique and fast solutions to a school's space needs. These modulars can be used as additions to existing schools or could be used to build mini schools. We will begin to purchase these new modulars in Budget 25. This is on top of the 100 modulars the government ordered in July that will be delivered by the end of this year. The fourth and final pillar of the program involves the expansion of spaces with partners of choice. I want to add a quick note in specific to charter schools. Charter schools, of course, receive full government funding and are not able to charge tuition. Charter schools offer unique programming that is designed to meet the unique learning needs of students. They play an important role in our education system, and through the Charter School Accelerator pilot, we aim to add 12,500 spaces over the next 4 years. This will be done by renovating or building up to 3 public charter school buildings and 2 public charter school expansions per year. In Budget 25, we will request funding for fully developed proposals that will result in new spaces. We are also exploring opportunities for a school capital pilot program for nonprofit independent schools, and I look forward to sharing more details at a later date. This program as well makes changes to our approval process. Alberta Education uses a gated approval process to build new schools. The first stage is planning, followed by design, and then construction. Currently, projects only move forward to the next stage during the annual budget cycle, meaning that it typically takes 3 years for a project to advance from planning to design to construction. However, we are changing that process to allow projects to move forward faster. Moving forward, a school will be able to move into its next stage at any time of the year when it has met the requirements of its current stage. In short, when a project is ready to move forward, it'll be able to do so. I ask our school boards to work with Alberta Education and their respective municipalities to move projects forward as quickly as possible. The faster you can complete the planning and design work, the faster your project can begin construction. As a result of this change, 10 school projects are now moving forward to the next stage of project delivery, with 6 moving to full construction. In closing, I know that there is a lot of work to come, but I am confident that this new program will keep up with historic levels of student growth in Alberta. We know this program will be welcomed by municipalities and our education partners. And just to reiterate the Premier's request to our school boards and municipalities, please work together to ensure your priority sites are permitted, serviced, and ready for construction work. We're all in this together, and the sooner your sites are ready to go, the sooner your project can be approved, and more importantly, the sooner we can get shovels in the ground and build these new schools. Thank you very much.
Oh, good morning. Thank you, Premier, Minister Nicolaides, as well as school and board representatives for being here to celebrate this amazing news for students and communities across Alberta. It's great to be here on the heels of recently completing and opening 5 new high schools across the province, including Blackfalds, Langdon, Leduc, and 2 in Edmonton. All of these projects were completed on time in May of this year and now have 7,000 students filling those halls. Alberta's economy continues to grow, and that's a good thing. But so have our communities, which has increased student enrollment and placed pressure on our school divisions. To address this need, I am happy to be part of today's announcement of the School Construction Accelerator Program. Over the next 3 years, our UCP government will invest $8.6 billion to prioritize up to 30 new school projects in each of those 3 years. By committing to 90 new schools and as many as 24 modernizations and replacement schools with this program, we intend to create over 200,000 spaces by 2031-32, with 150,000 coming from this program alone. The breakdown of that figure includes 100,000 brand new student spaces, 16,000 plus modernized spaces, 20,000 into modular classrooms, and approximately 12,500 for new public charter schools. Also with today's announcement, immediate changes are being made to the government's funding process, which will shorten timelines for a construction approval. From now on, funding for projects that are ready to proceed to the next stage can be approved in year without having to wait for the next budget cycle. This means previously approved schools that are currently in planning or design can move forward to the next stage as soon as they're ready. And on that note, I'm happy to say that we have an additional 10 schools that are moving forward to that next phase. That's 6 approved for construction, 3 for design, and 1 moving into planning. And now, as many of our industry partners know, projects like these, they take a lot of cooperation and coordination. And currently, we have 90 projects at various stages of development, creating over 14,000 jobs for Albertans. With the additional 30 schools each year and the improved process efficiency to move projects along, we anticipate creating thousands of jobs, if not tens of thousands of additional jobs, to support those 200,000 new spaces. From the time a school project is approved until the doors open to students, a lot of hard work and effort has gone on behind the scenes. And it doesn't matter what stage of development we are in, our priority is to get students into desks as quickly as possible while ensuring their classrooms and the halls that they walk are well built and well maintained to foster positive learning for years to come. So I'm looking forward to the months and years ahead. We do have a lot of work here to do, and our team at Alberta Infrastructure is itching to get started. Thank you. I would now like to call upon and ask Patricia Bolger to come up and say a few words.
To Premier Smith and the Government of Alberta, thank you on behalf of CB, Board of Trustees, students, staff, and families. The government has recognized our enrollment pressures and is working with us to address the urgent need to build, modernize, and maintain schools in Calgary. Thank you for this much-needed investment. We have welcomed more than 143,000 students this school year, an increase of more than 5,000 students compared to last year. Right now, our system utilization is 96%. Our schools are full. Today's announcement is a step in the right direction for the Calgary Board of Education and the families we serve. First, we appreciate that you're making changes to the capital process. This will result in more timely and streamlined way for getting new schools built in growing communities. In the latest capital plan we submitted to the government in March, we requested 21 new schools over 3 years, and all of our 13 first-year requests are site and shovel ready. Families in Calgary expect all of these projects to be fully funded so students can attend school closer to home. The Calgary Board of Education needs 40 schools over the next 10 years to manage enrollment growth. Second, we appreciate the additional investment in modernizing older schools. The CBE has 251 schools, and 56% of them are at least 50 years old. And that number is set to climb to over 70% during the next decade. Modernizations are essential in maintaining excellent learning environments for students. Third, we appreciate the investment in maintenance and renewal funding. This is urgently required to ensure that students continue to learn in safe, optimal school environments. All of these investments in infrastructure are vital to support student learning opportunities across our system. We are grateful for our ongoing partnership with Minister Nicolaides and the ways we've worked together to find solutions. We look forward to further discussions in support of prioritizing the expectations of Calgary families that choose CBE schools. And now over to Julie Cusick from Edmonton Public.
Thank you, Premier, ministers, and other special guests here today for this announcement about a significant investment into Alberta students. This year, we've greeted more than 120,000 students into Edmonton Public Schools. That's an increase of 6,600 new students since last year. Our hallways and classrooms are busier than ever before. With this announcement, I can foresee a day where maker spaces are full classrooms rather than a corner of the library, a foods class that doesn't also hold a math class, and staff rooms that give our hardworking staff a place to take a break. I can see that with accelerated construction and committed funding, Edmonton Public Schools will be able to grow and expand our 30-plus alternative programs, offering more choice to students and their families. I can see a day when kids can get into the school across the street because there will no longer be a need for lotteries. We are committed to working with the province to meet demand for unprecedented enrollment growth with Edmonton Public Schools. I cannot overstate the significance of being able to move through the stages of construction swiftly and without delay. To meet demand, Edmonton Public Schools will require 50 new schools to be built within 10 years. There is no time to delay. With this new process, our division can have confidence that existing projects will proceed through the stages through to construction as soon as they are ready. Last night, the Premier emphasized that this plan is ambitious and will require all hands on deck. Specifically, it is imperative that school boards and municipalities get sites ready to avoid any delays. Premier, I'm pleased to share 2 pieces of good news. The first is that I've confirmed that we are ready. All 12 projects requested in our Year 1 capital plan are on track to be ready for Budget 2025. And after your announcement last night, I did have a brief phone conversation with Mayor Amarjeet Sohi, and he confirmed that the City of Edmonton will work with Edmonton Public Schools to ensure sites are ready as soon as possible, and that together we are going to do everything we can to ensure that site readiness is never a cause for delay. There is momentum, and we are ready for it. I say, bring out the shovels and bring on the schools. So with that, I will turn it over to Q&A. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Julie. Okay, we'll now take some questions from reporters. Just a reminder, it'll be 1 question, 1 follow-up. Please state your name and outlet for the record.
Hi, Terry from CTV Calgary.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking my question. I'm just wondering, as we talk about new schools and keeping up with enrollment, does this funding is there any allocated funding for more teachers?
I can get the education minister to come up. We did announce some additional operational funding over the summer, so we have funding for more modulars, but we also have funding to be able to manage growth pressures. And we're working now on identifying if we need to modify our funding model. The funding model was working for us when we had declining enrollment, declining population, and it works for declining school boards because it's a 3-year weighted average, and it's to protect school boards so that they don't end up with a dramatic reduction. With this huge surge, it's not as responsive as we need it to be for enrollment growth. So the minister is going through the Treasury Board process and working on an alternative model. Did you want to say more about that? I don't think we've got an answer yet, but how much did we put in for the short-term measure to help with hiring? 125 million we announced a few weeks ago to be able to help with this school year, but there'll be more to say in the upcoming budget, which will be delivered in February.
Okay, and can we get a breakdown for the 8.6? How much will go to public, charter, private?
Do you have the answer to that, Pete? Well, look, I mean, a part of it is that we want to change the process so that as the projects become ready, they're able to move more quickly through the process, because I think everybody puts in their capital plan and then they wait with bated breath to see if it's going to be approved in the upcoming budget. What we want to say is, if you're ready, we're ready to be with you on that. There's a process that the minister goes through along with Minister of Infrastructure to make sure that the sites and the projects are ready to go, and that's really going to be the only barrier. We want to make sure that the land ownership is clear. We want to make sure the site is serviced. We want to make sure all the permits are done, and then we'll be prepared to meet the school boards as they come up. But I don't believe, I would anticipate that the number of Catholic schools versus public schools would be equivalent to the student enrollment. And I think this student enrollment is about, I want to say 1/3 in Catholic versus public. Yeah, so probably about, you'd expect that would be the rough ratio. And then there's also 12,500 spaces that we'll be doing for charter schools. Have we identified how many will be independent schools, or is that just we'll just have to see what the demand is on the independent schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Premier Kelly Kreiderman, Globe and Mail.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to raise any doubts about the fact that we need new schools in Alberta, but with a major address like this and the money involved, do you have to be more clear about the debt the province will have to take on in order to fund these schools, and how that will play out in next year's budget process?
Sure. I mean, I can be very clear about it. Minister Guthrie did some great work in the spring session, working as well with Minister Nicolaides to figure out a new funding model for schools, because part of what has happened in the past is that when we fund it as a transfer, it comes out of operational spending, and that by its very nature limits the number that we can approve each year. So what we'll be doing on a go forward is that we will be owning the infrastructure we build. And so that allows for us to amortize the projects over the lifetime of the project. As you heard from our school board representatives, some of these schools last 50 years. And so we want to be able to match that with our borrowing. So it'll come on our books as a capital asset, and it will come on our books as a capital liability, and then we will service the debt based on what makes sense from a Treasury Board perspective. That's how we'll be funding it. And that's the reason why we've been able to accelerate it, is we just simply wouldn't have been able to have this volume of funding if it was the traditional grants-based process.
You're asking municipalities and school boards to gear up and to prepare for this. Yet this week we're seeing a debate play out in the city of Calgary about the Green Line, where money that was promised by the province has been canceled, and now the city is having to deal with the ramifications of that. How are municipalities and school boards going to have trust that you will follow through with your funding pledges here?
The money that we have pledged for the Green Line is still there. I would say that we want the Green Line to be as it was initially pitched to us. We want it to go to Seaton so that it services the hospital and services Quarry Park and services the areas where the people are. We want the Green Line to go to 160th in the north, as it was promised, to be able to service the communities there as well. What we kept observing, and we kept on having the conversation with the city as they got more and more budget constraints, was don't cut the south part of the line, cut some of the expensive downtown part of the line. And when it got to a point now where this incredible shrinking project is now, 7 stops, 9 kilometers, at a cost of $600 million per kilometer, if it continues to be built out at that rate, it'll be a $20 billion project. Calgarians can't afford that, we can't afford it, the feds can't afford it. So there needed to be a rethink on this, and we remain committed. I was very pleased to see that a motion that Sonia Sharp put forward to ask us to work collaboratively on putting a steering committee together with representatives from the city, the province, and the federal government so that we could work through what that new proposal looks like. Passed 8-7, it was tight, but thank you to all the council members who are willing to engage with us in good faith. We'll reach out to our federal counterparts to see if they want to participate in that, because the federal funding is going to be very important. I understand there's some time limits on that because of the way it's been granted, it needs to be spent by March of 2025, or committed by March of 2025. And I think that we've done this before. We came to the table to assist the city in getting to a final agreement on the event center, with us coming in as the capital partner on infrastructure. So I feel like these collaborative processes will really work. What I fear has happened with the Green Line is that it didn't have effective, consistent political oversight. And that's part of the reason why it's gone completely out of control. I think that what Calgarians want is they want a line that goes to where the people are, and that's what we're committed to build.
Hi, Paula Tran from Livewire Calgary. These infrastructure problems, they've been existing for years, and also operational problems. So why is the government announcing these funding now instead of funding over the years?
Well, look, I mean, we didn't have the acute nature of this problem because in 2014, we, of course, suffered a major decrease in our economic growth. We had 13 quarters of out-migration, and that began to turn around in 2022. It's part of the reason why when we looked at 2023, we had 200,000 people come to our province in that year from a variety of different places. And we have done our best to accommodate them on the infrastructure that we have. But every time I talk to a school board chair, I heard the same story, especially the big school boards. And it's the same with the Catholic boards in both cities as well. Like, they're talking about the need to have 40, 50 schools built in the next 10 years. I don't know the last time the Calgary Board of Education had a 96% utilization rate, but they normally try to have an 85% utilization rate to be able to offer all of their programming. And so a number of months ago, I asked Demetrios to find a new model for how we would be able to fund infrastructure. I said, we just have to build at an accelerated rate. And that's part of why the legislation came through from that Minister Guthrie led in the spring, and it's allowed for us to be able to do this kind of acceleration. And it really was just the unique circumstances of 2023, with so many people coming in at once. That's the highest level of people moving to Alberta that we've seen in our history. So that's part of the reason. If we have to respond to the pressures of managing growth, and that's what this announcement's about.
In your address yesterday and also today, you're asking schools to come up with proposals for these new builds. So why is the responsibility being put on the schools to find the space for these new builds?
It always has been. So the process that we have with our school boards is every year they give us their capital plan, and then they prioritize what their top priorities are for full replacements, modernizations, and new builds. And then we always face the very difficult challenge looking at the budget of what do we say yes to and what has to be put off. And so we know we can't do that with this volume of newcomers and this volume of kids who are in the system. We have to be able to meet every school board with their most urgent needs in an accelerated way. And that's what we wanted to do with this process. But it's always been the case that the school boards have led the effort. We just have had to be a lot more strict in the number that we could approve each year because of budget limitations. But with the new way that we're going to be financing these, it allows for us to build as they become ready.
Hi, Premier Michael King with Global News. You talk about private schools. Mm-hmm. Private schools need this additional funding, and when you say it comes at a discount to the taxpayer, how does that compare to the per cost of the spots in the public sector?
The cost per student in the public system is about 10 to 11,000. I'm looking at my minister. But the overall amount that we pay in the public system is between 10 and 11,000. We can probably try to get a more precise number. With the independent schools, we only fund them at 70% of the operational grant. So I believe that's about 5,300 around there right now. So that gives you an idea of where the discount comes in. And so we're putting it out there as a pilot to see if there is any interest in partnering on the same basis that we'll be building the other schools with the different school boards.
And on the Green Line, is the province ready to take over the project and specifically the 70 contracts that are tied to that?
Look, we need to rethink the way that the Green Line is being built. And I would say where the agreement is that we all agree that there needs to be a station at the event center as well as going out to Linwood. Those are the ones that have already been done on the engineering, the planning. We just want it to go further. We want it to go out to Seton, which was the original part of the plan. And there needs to be more work done to figure out a way to integrate it into the red and blue lines. And so that's what we've hired AECON to do. We just inked the deal yesterday. We have a number of different items that we're going to ask them to look at to see if there's a better way to have it integrated into downtown. Like, remember, when this was first conceived of, it was not conceived of as a single continuous project. And I think this is part of the reason why. If you look at the former transit boss, who I think the next person in line has interviewed, he said that one of the difficulties came when the announcement was made would be that it would be a single continuous line from Seton all the way to 160th, and no one even asked the experts whether it could be done. And now we're seeing, suppose engineers are pretty smart, Peter will tell you that, he's one himself, they can figure out a lot of stuff, but it's very expensive. And so that's the question, is are we getting what we need for Calgarians? And what Calgarians need is they need to have the stations close to where they live so that it's actually usable for them. So I want to continue working with the city on that. I want to work with the federal government on that. And I think we'll be able to come up with a proposal in pretty short order. I think AECON has been given a time frame of December. And we know what the pressures are to be able to get the federal government to partner with us on it. So we're going to be moving very quickly.
Rick Bell, Post Media. On the Green Line, one of my favorite topics.
I bet. You've been writing a lot on it.
12 years I've been writing about this deal. You talk about working with the city, and you talk about that there was a vote 8-7 to have a working group, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in reality, if you watched that council meeting yesterday, it was very emotional, very animated, very hostile. In fact, even one of the councillors, who's usually on the council majority, veteran councillor, said he would be happy if you would come to city council, ask for permission to speak, apologize to them, and then beg them to work with you. And we also have the mayor, who's used many very strong words addressing your decision. Very strong. In fact, she even has a new website now. So how do you square that? How do you square with the fact that you want to work, you say you want to work with the city, but yet there is outright hostility over your decision among many city politicians, including the mayor? Look,
I mean, it was a tight vote, obviously, 8-7, but that still shows me that the majority of council are entering with a spirit of goodwill in trying to find a solution. That's what we all want. We want a solution that comes close to looking something like the original plan we were pitched on. And I feel like that is what we owe Alberta taxpayers and what we owe Calgarian taxpayers is we got to do our darndest to get at least the South Line built out to Seton. And then the next stage, and I've already told the mayor this, if we can come to an agreement on that, then we can talk about how we get the North Line serviced. But we've got to at least have one part of this line built as it was originally pitched to us, to the feds, and to Calgarians.
And the second question is kind of a clarification. It was asked earlier, but it's been repeated by council members, and I think they're wrong, but you can confirm whether they are not. They talk about wanting you to take over the project. Now, my understanding is you're willing to fund something, you're just not willing to fund what they had on the table. So therefore, it's still a Calgary, no, tell me if I'm right, it's still a Calgary Transit project. Yeah. You're just saying that in December, you're going to go back to the city, you're going to say, here are some alternatives we are willing to consider, But it's still their project. It's just that you don't want to fund their design. You want to fund another design.
That's how we would hope it would work. I think that's the most constructive way to work because it has to be integrated into Calgary City Transit. That said, we also have a major passenger rail proposal that we've put out to get a response on. I think we have a $15 million RFP that we've delivered so that someone can, so the company, I'm not sure who won that bid, that company can tell us how all of these things would be integrated, because we have a number of different proponents for a number of different projects. There's like a Hyperloop, and there's a Ellis Dons proposal from Calgary to Edmonton, and then there's the Banff Trail proposal, and then there is a proposal for how we might be able to build Calgary or Airdrie to Okotoks as commuter rail, and as well as integrate with our existing system. I mean, we're very complicated now. Toronto was in this exact same position when they launched their Ontario Metro links so that they could coordinate between buses, both local and regional, transit, both local and regional, as well as the GO train. And I feel like that's the conversation that we need to have, is how do we make all of these pieces fit together? So I don't want to prejudge what that might look like, but that's the reason why we have to be a lot more involved in this. It's not Calgary's job to solve all of the problems for the entire Calgary metro region, or figure out a way to be able to get service between Calgary and Edmonton. That, by definition, because it goes across jurisdiction, is our job to solve. So we want to be partners, but we don't want to take over the transit system. No, we just want to make sure.
You're not buying the Green Line.
We're not. No, we want to be able to fund a Green Line that was originally pitched to us going out to Seaton.
Okay, thanks, Premier. We're now going to go to the phones. Operator, can you please put through our first caller?
Thank you. Your question comes from the line of Scott Streeter from Calgary Herald and Sun. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This is another Green Line question, but can the province deliver a train project in Calgary without the city's involvement? Because the city is quite adamant that this project is dead in their view.
Well, I would say 8 out of 7 council members voted to work with us on figuring out an alternative path and see if we can figure out a routing that looks closer to what was originally pitched on this. So I would say that actually represents the true view of the majority of council.
Okay. Follow-up is about another amendment that was introduced yesterday by Councillor Courtney Walcott, about drafting a clear set of criteria by which the city would consider engaging with the province on any future LRT project they propose to replace the Green Line program with. The criteria include a lot of the things that were included in the previous vision, such as a north-south LRT spine from 160th Avenue to the community of Seaton, etc. Is the province willing to abide by those criteria?
Well, look, I mean, you have to remember, we were pitched initially on a 46-kilometer line that would go from Seaton to 160th at a cost of $4.6 billion. It kept on shrinking and shrinking and shrinking to a point where this tiny little stub of a line doesn't serve either the Deep South or the Deep North. So yes, I welcome some kind of collaborative agreement so that we can make sure that we're all working towards the same objective. I think that as this project began shrinking, it became pretty clear to us that it really wasn't serving anyone. And that's why we had to step in, put on the brakes, and see if we could get back to the original vision.
Great. Operator, next caller, please.
Your next question comes from the line of Janet French from CBC Edmonton. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Just back to the schools. So hearing you describe how you're going to account for all these projects on your books, talking about amortizing them over the lifetime of the project, does that mean that all new school projects in Alberta are going to be P3s? And if not, can you please clarify what will be P3s and which won't?
Well, they'll be provincially owned, but I'll let Pete maybe come up to talk about our strategy around how we build. We've actually gotten quite expert at this, so I'll let Pete tell you what we do.
Yeah, from a P3 perspective, all projects within infrastructure that are 100 million or more, we evaluate for P3 viability. They don't all make it, but we have a responsibility as a government to use public funds the most effectively and efficiently that we can. So if there is value for money, we will go through with P3. So I would say that some of these will be P3 packages, but certainly not all of them.
Okay, just to follow up on the private school construction incentive, what is this incentive pilot? Like, what proportion of the construction cost would be incentivized? And is this the first time in Alberta history that the government would pay for any construction costs towards private schools?
I don't know if this is the first time in history that we would have paid for it. We want to put all of the different school options on the same level playing field. That's why, with us owning the construction, owning the project, that allows for us to be able to look at a number of different unique approaches to be able to support independent, charter, as well as our two major school boards, public and private in both cities. Or I guess all across the province, we've got both public and private. Do you want to add to that? I mean, I think we want to see what the pitch comes in from the independent schools, and then we'll have to judge it at that time.
Yeah, as the Premier noted, we're in the process now of developing what that pilot will look like. Of course, there's a couple of different possibilities and options. We want to talk with our independent school providers to see what would work and what makes the most sense for government and for them, so that we can explore that partnership. And I think the important thing with this partnership is making sure that we have all hands on deck. The enrollment pressures that we are seeing warrant us to use every possible avenue that we can to expand spaces, to reduce class sizes, and to make sure that those kids receive the highest quality education possible.
Great. Operator, next caller, please.
Your next question comes from the line of Lisa Johnson from Canadian Press. Please proceed.
Hi, thanks. I have a question. I'm hoping that Julie and Patricia can weigh in on this. Obviously, we're hearing a lot of questions about the Green Line today, but I'm wondering, Julie, you mentioned there's 12 projects that are on track and ready for 2025. Patricia, you mentioned there's 13 site and shovel-ready projects. What confidence do you each have that this government will actually get this money out the door, given it's just pulled $1.53 billion from the Green Line project, and the province has made it very clear this funding is very contingent on school boards and municipalities getting sites ready?
Well, I'd happily have Patricia and Julie come up and talk about our record. Pete was telling me that we've built 18 schools a year is sort of our traditional amount of school build, and I think we've got an excellent process for it. Mayor Sohi sent me a note last night saying we're ready to go, and so he's reached out not only to the school boards already, but also to me directly as well. So I'm feeling pretty good about their ability to meet the permitting and site readiness, and the school boards have assured us as well, you heard today, that they've got schools that are ready to go. So we want to be able to accelerate that. Julie or Patricia, did you want to come up?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, I can't speak to anything to do with the Green Line. That is not in my scope. But what I can say is I'm here to celebrate this new program where we can move through the stages and celebrate the $8 billion that's being committed to this. I'm here because I'm hoping that all of this comes to fruition, and I have no reason to think that it won't. So I'll leave it at that. And to say that we do have our 12 projects in year one on track to be ready for budget 25, and we are going to be working very diligently with the City of Edmonton to make sure year 2 and 3 and any additional sites will also be ready on time for the following year. Thanks.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. Well, I'd also say that the Green Line does not impact any school construction in Calgary, and we do work closely with the city to ensure sites are ready and would not put them on our capital plan year 1 until they are. So as mentioned before, we have 13 sites that are school ready, and as we mentioned, these are needs, not wants, and we hope that those are expedited quickly to get kids in the schools so they don't have to attend overflow schools or take the bus out of their communities.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. We have time for one more question, so I'm going to come back to in the room. Go ahead. Yeah.
Good morning, Premier. Logan Stein, 660 News Radio. Some members of City Council have claimed the province's recent comments about the Green Line and the state of the deal is solely being used as a political weapon against the opposition, especially considering Minister Demetrios' statement taking shots at how former Mayor Nenshi handled the situation when he was Mayor of Calgary. Kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that and how you think Nenshi handled the project while he was Mayor of Calgary.
Look, the thing that I think caused some of the problems was when there was a change in government at the municipal level, decision-making ceased to have political oversight. That's where I think the fundamental problem began, because I think decisions were made at that point that kept a lot of council members in the dark. For instance, why did they have what is the fixation on going to Eau Claire? What is the contracts that have been signed there? We've been asking for what the commitment is there. We're trying to understand how that decision was made. But I can tell you, council members were left in the dark on that. And it's part of the reason why I think everything has been centered around a single option. I don't think that there has been the fulsome discussion about how do we get the line fully out to Seton. That's what we needed to stop and restart. So that's why we're trying to reset to make sure that there is better political oversight, so that any major decision that's being made that has multi-billion-dollar implications has all of the funding partners included in it. And so we'll take that under advisement as we move forward with all of our other capital projects. But I think that this is a learning lesson for all of us.
And do you feel as if there will be a rift between how the provincial government works with City Council moving forward, considering everything that's kind of happened over the last month?
Look, I mean, there are things that I get along with our federal counterparts on and things that we don't get along on. There are things that I get along with mayors on and things that I don't. And I suspect that this will hopefully, because 8 out of 7 of the council members have the goodwill to want to move forward with us to try to figure out a new approach that will allow us to get further on south out to Seton. I'm taking that as a measure that they want to work with us, and so we'll put forward a committee and we'll get to work on that, and then hopefully when ICON gives us the proposal in December, we'll be able to have something to work with. But we've already reached out to our federal counterparts. We want them to be more embedded in this process as well, and I think we'll get a better answer that will not only be more cost effective, but it will get us get the line where it needs to go, which is into the deep south.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.